I don't think there is a problem of evil. The problem of evil arises from a relatively arbitrary assumption, which is that nature, in its most fundamental level, has to be good. But why? Why should it have to be good? Or to put the same thing in different words, the problem of evil arises from the assumption that God has to be intrinsically and purely good, the summum bonum of the New Testament. That God is only good, and all the evil is with the devil, which is a medieval invention. There was no devil at the early ages of Christianity, even into Rome, even into 3rd and 4th, 5th century, even into Augustine. The devil, as we picture it today, is a medieval invention. But there was a devil in the Old Testament. And what was that devil? He was the prosecutor in the court of God. He was the metacognitive aspect of God, the doubter. Because God was purely instinctive. If you read the book of Job in the Old Testament, when the devil doubts Job's righteousness, as the prosecutor, he has to doubt. It's his role. He is a member of the entourage of God. He's not in hell. That's the God of the Old Testament. He is not in hell. He's there alongside God and the angels. He's the firstborn of God, the prince, the favorite son. In other words, he's made of the same stuff as God because he's the son of God. He is an aspect of God. That's what all of this mythology is trying to tell you. And he's doubting, and he doubts Job, and God tests Job. And at some point, Job gets furious and seeks an audience with God to argue, why did you kill my children? Why did you take my money and my farm and everything I had? Why did you make me ill? I have always honored you. I never did anything right. I've followed the law. I'm a righteous person. Why did you do all that? And then God goes on a tirade, goes on a long monologue, a furious monologue, telling Job, who are you to question my actions? I am the power behind the storms. And he goes on. And if you read that, what he's saying is, I act spontaneously, just like nature does. For the same reason that storms come, that volcanoes erupt, I made you suffer. Because I don't think things through. I am spontaneous. I just act. I'm not metacognitive. Only my fallen son, the devil, is. And of course, it's the devil that caused Adam and Eve to fall after the devil himself. Let's use the proper word, Lucifer, the carrier of light. After Lucifer fell, he caused the rest of humanity to fall. Therefore, we became metacognitive. And why did he do that? In order to get the whole of humanity to render a service to his Father. Isn't that obvious? That's Lucifer of the Old Testament, an inherent aspect of God trying to help itself. And that's why the serpent in the garden and the tree with the fruit of the tree of knowledge and the fruit and Adam and Eve being expelled, the fall into metacognition, and all of that being a way God found to help itself become less instinctive, less purely spontaneous, because it causes pain and suffering to itself by acting so spontaneously. And it's trying to rescue itself. And we are the means to that end. Life is sacrificial in that sense. And that's what the Christian tradition is telling us. If we absorb the Christian tradition as a whole, not only the Old Testament. The Old Testament is an evolution of that, in which we tried to, and that's also a fundamental archetypal thing. The figure of the Christ is very archetypal. It's the embodiment of all that is good, all that is love-related, as opposed to fear-related. The opposite of love is fear, not evil. Anyway, it's a sidetrack. And it was important to bring balance when it arose. This idea of the good of nature and salvation through the figure of the Christ, which is an archetype. It's completely irrelevant whether Jesus actually lived as a man or not. Doesn't matter. Christ exists as an archetype. It brought a certain degree of balance. I fear we are losing that balance now because we have this notion that God has to be the summum bonum, purely good, and that exiles the devil into hell. And it gives energy and makes that energy dangerous. What you reject and ignore and sever and dissociate from and pretend not to exist or contain and repress, that's what gets the energy. And that's what can come back and bite you in the butt. And we are doing that. We are repressing evil. And when we repress evil, we project evil. Everybody else is evil, not us. The Russians are evil. The Chinese are evil. The Jews are evil. The Muslims are evil. And what do you think the Muslims are saying? The bloody Christians are evil. The Russians are evil, invaded Afghanistan. The Jews are evil, took Palestine from us and tortured the Palestinians to this day. No, we are all doing that because we repress this evil by pretending that it's not an intrinsic part of nature. And that's how the problem of evil arises. When we pretend that it's not an intrinsic part of nature, we get confused when nature expresses evil. So where did that come from? It's not supposed to happen. Nature is not supposed to be evil or to have evil as one of its intrinsic potentialities. Well, hello, obviously it does. Even before humans were around, predators were going around the earth, killing each other, inflicting incredible pain on each other in order to survive. Otherwise, they themselves would suffer out of starvation. Dying of hunger is one of the most horrific deaths. That's the destiny of whoever would not inflict pain and suffering as a predating animal. It's built into the fabric of nature. In your backyard, ants are cutting up earthworms in pieces while they are wiggling alive and wiggling for their lives. There is no problem of evil. Evil is part of the game. It's one aspect of the game. It's just how things are. It's just it. The problem is when we don't acknowledge that, when we repress it, we give energy to it by repression, and we project it on others. Then it becomes really dangerous. Then we wage wars against each other. We kill each other. Conflict arises. Segregation, racism, fundamentalism, religious wars. This is all a consequence of projecting that which you repress in yourself. It's child play, not in the sense that it's innocent. It's not innocent at all. It's terrible. But it's child's play in the sense that it's incredibly naive. It reflects a degree of immaturity that we must overcome at some point before we extinguish ourselves. When you become an adult, you recognize that the roots of evil are in you, and then you manage it. You say, that evil in me, it has a right to exist. It's part of nature. I'm not going to extirpate it, repress it, because then I don't see it. And when I don't see it, that's when it comes back to bite me. That's when I, a righteous man all my life, turn 40, pick up a gun and kill 15 people in a shopping mall. That's what happens when you don't see and nurture a relationship with the evil in you. When you do nurture that relationship, your evil will be like a bonsai tree. It will grow, it will evolve, but it will be kept small because you're always pruning it. You're always managing it. You give it its right to exist, but under adult supervision, so it doesn't cause harm. You can play evil. Don't force me to enumerate the many ways in which you can play with the evil in you without causing harm to yourself or anybody else. Computer games are one way to do that. You play with the evil in you. People say, oh, computer games are incredibly unhealthy. I don't think they are. I think they give flow to an energy that would cause that 40-year-old righteous guy who never played a computer game to actually pick up a gun and kill 15 people in a shopping mall. And if some serial shooters, mass assassins have played computer games, it's because statistically that's bound to happen. Some people with those tendencies in a society where computer games are widespread will have played computer games. you know, some of them will be white, some of them will be black, some of them will be Asian, some of them will be tall, some of them will be short, skinny, and fat. Of course, statistically, some of them will be all of those things, including having played games. So I think that's the game. The game is granting evil the right to exist and to express itself under adult supervision so it's harmless, and never repressing it, because that's when the true harm is done, when you repress it and you no longer see it because it's repressed. And that requires a certain maturity for the culture. It requires us to become adults as a society and understand that crime prevention is not about vengeance. It's not about personal responsibility. All this philosophical discussion, if there is no free will, then nobody is responsible for the crimes they commit, so therefore they can't be thrown in jail. It's nonsensical. It's not about responsibility and vengeance. It's about preemption. It's about having a society that works properly. A society needs to have trust built into it to work properly. If some people, for no blame of their own, are such alters that are capable of committing evil and have proven themselves to have that capability, then they need to be contained within society in a way that they don't cause the harm that would lead to a breakdown of trust. We must trust that when we are driving on the highway, the other cars will be driven by people who obey the rules. We must trust that when we do a business transaction, the other party will pay without requiring us to sue. And if we sue, we must trust that the law will be followed during that trial. So trust is everywhere. And if nature is such that statistically some people will act in a way that is incompatible with trust, then we have to contain them, not as a punishment, not as vengeance, but because society needs to run on trust. And so we need to compartmentalize things in such a way that not everything goes to hell for everybody.